Hello, welcome again to the next clip in the motorcycling saga of getting from Penrith in the outer western suburbs of Sydney at the foothills of the Blue Mountains back to Goulburn. In this video I'm still riding on the Hume Highway southwest towards Goulburn and entering into the area known as the Southern Highlands. That is the city or towns of Mittagong, Bowral, Moss Vale and a few smaller villages like Bundanoon, Exeter, Sutton Forest and so on. In the last video I talked a little bit about driving etiquette in Australia and the rules of the road and how to ride on a multiple lane highway, but I thought I'd revisit a topic that I had spoken about in an earlier video, and that was the video where I talked about the helmet law being repealed in the state of Missouri in the United States. Now, first of all, I should mention that the information that I have here, or that I used in that video, came from Kevin at MC Rider, who lives in Texas, in the Fort Worth, Dallas area, and applies only to the specific circumstances that I mentioned in either Michigan or other states as I mentioned them throughout this video. That video caused some reaction, and I thought I would tell you about some of that reaction, and I would further comment and perhaps provide a bit more detail on what I know about that particular instance of the law being repealed and its implications. The first person who reacted to it made a comment along the lines of civil liberties, or the taking away, if you like, of civil liberties such as the right to movement, the right to make decisions for ourselves and so on, that it's all very well to do that if the public agree, or even if they're coerced into doing it for the greater good, but all of those decisions should be subject to judicial review and perhaps even be repealed if necessary. Now, I should state here that constitutionally, I'm not a lawyer of any sort, but we all know that the United States has a Bill of Rights in its constitution. Australia, in its federal constitution, that is the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Australia, does not have a Bill of Rights. So things sometimes that we assert that are our rights are in fact not constitutionally guaranteed in Australia, but may exist in common law and may exist as a presumption. For example, there is no guaranteed right of free speech, and that's why defamation laws in Australia are as they are, but there is an implied right of free speech with certain caveats. So with this law in Michigan, there were certain caveats, and that is that you must be older than 26 years of age and you must have life insurance if you decide not to wear a helmet. I pointed out that in my broadcast, that either by consent or coercion, we agree to certain infringements of our civil liberties, for example, being pulled over by the police and asked to take roadside breathalyzer tests, being pulled over by the police and being required to take a roadside drug test. And in fact, refusal to do either of those things is a criminal offence which will could result in prison time. I've said at the time that we agree to allow the government to regulate who can drive a car, what type of car you can drive, or motorcycle for that matter, at a certain age. We agree to controls on the sale and consumption of alcohol, tobacco, gambling, certain medications, illicit drugs and so on. So we agree to these things because for the most part we see that those things are in the common good and it's necessary to have certain regulations about them. We agree, even those who perhaps don't agree with the law but wear a helmet grudgingly, do so because either the financial penalties for not doing so are not worth having the fight about, or we agree that it is in the common good. So yes, and as we found out during the COVID epidemic pandemic, when governments were telling us to stay indoors and telling us we couldn't be in certain places and we had to be doing certain activities. For example, sitting in a park soaking up the sun was not exercise. If you were in a park, you had to be exercising. If there were more than two of you, it could constitute a crime and so on. Now, we know that lots of fines were handed out to people and most of those fines have been overturned, but the suspension of our civil liberties at that time was based on medical advice, I guess, by scientists and doctors saying we've got to stop the spread of this pandemic. And the only way to do that is to tell people to stay inside and to prevent them from gathering in large numbers in certain places. But I agree that civil liberties and those things that might curtail our basic rights to freedom of association, freedom of movement and freedom of choice in some things ought to be reviewed sometimes, rather than just, okay, we're going to do this thing from now on, you're not going to be able to do X, and that's going to be the new law and it's just going to stay there forever. But at the same time, I couldn't see that anyone in Australia, any government in Australia, even the most civil libertarian-minded individuals I couldn't see that they would ever look at the laws and say, we're going to repeal the law on compulsory wearing of seatbelts, or we're going to repeal the law on compulsory wearing of motorcycle helmets, because we know that those things save lives. We know that seatbelts do prevent injuries. We know that helmets do prevent catastrophic brain injuries. And therefore, even if it is an infringement of someone's right to choose, we're going to insist upon it. Now, another poster pointed out to me that in the state of Texas, for example, helmets are optional once you reach the age of 21. Now, I did a bit of research and I found out that you can get a motorcycle licence in Texas when you're 16 years of age. In Texas, you become an adult when you're 18, so the 21 doesn't appear to apply to reaching adulthood. Some states in America, you become an adult when you're 21, but other states you reach the age of majority when you become 18, and Texas is one of those states. In most states of America, the consumption of alcohol is prohibited until you're 21 years of age. But in any case, returning to the question of motorcycling, you can get a licence to ride a motorcycle when you're 16. Between the ages of 16 and 21, that 5-year period, your brain, your head, is protected by laws and is in the province of the state police or the local police or some law enforcement agency to see that you're complying with that law, and that is that you're wearing a helmet. But by the time you reach 21, I'm not sure what the reason is. I couldn't find any reasoning for it, just a statement of fact. It is perhaps presumed that you're an adult and you're able to make your own decisions, and therefore you can make a decision of your own to decide whether or not you want to wear a helmet. And if you decide not to wear one, then presumably you accept the consequences of that. And I think the poster said it was advisable to have good insurance. Now, I want to talk about insurance, and I'll come back to that in a moment, but it seems to me that even in places where you could say, well, it is my right to choose, it's my body and I have the right to choose what I do with it, that your right to choose not to wear a helmet, for example, or not to wear a seatbelt, ought to be overridden by decisions about the consequences of you not wearing the helmet or not wearing the seatbelt. One other person who posted a comment stated that when he was young, he didn't wear a helmet, but as he got older and become wiser, he decided that he would wear a helmet. He stated that when seatbelts started coming into cars, he wore them. He wore one from the get-go, as they say, as he knew of someone who hadn't worn one and had gone through the windscreen of the car and suffered the sort of catastrophic facial injuries that you would expect before the sorts of windscreens we have in cars now, and airbags and all that sort of stuff came into existence. But nevertheless, he still thought it should be a matter of choice. Now, I said I'd talk about insurance. In Australia, there are 3 types of insurance that govern motor vehicles. The first is what we call compulsory third-party insurance, or in New South Wales we call it green slip insurance. It is insurance, and remember that I'm not a lawyer, that governs injuries to individuals involved in motor vehicle accidents. So if you have whether you are the cause of the accident or not, the compulsory third-party insurance, which you must have when you register your vehicle, covers your medical expenses, or some of those medical expenses, depending on what state you're in, and medical expenses of a person who may be injured in an accident involving you. I mentioned my son who was involved in a motorcycle accident where the back tyre appeared to blow out. He had a few days in intensive care, and his medical bills were covered by his third-party insurance, which in the state of Victoria is called the TAC, or Traffic Accidents Commission, which is a government instrumentality. So when you register your vehicle, you pay a TAC premium, and that covers this third-party insurance. When you have an accident and you go to hospital, someone's got to pay the medical bills. In this case, in Victoria, it is the TAC, or Traffic Accidents Commission. So it's really one branch of the government playing another branch of the government. One is an insurance company and the other is the medical bills. The same situation exists in Tasmania, where they have what's called the Motor Accidents Insurance Board. In other states, they have variations of that. In New South Wales, there are a variety of companies that offer green slip insurance, or CTP, and they all do the same thing. They insure the third party, that is, other people who are injured in accidents or people who are injured in accidents. They don't insure property and they don't insure your car. The second sort of insurance is comprehensive insurance, which is you say, I want to protect my car from damage, and if it gets damaged, I want it to be repaired, or if it's damaged beyond repair and is written off, I want the value of the car to be paid out to me. How that works is, if you have an accident and you are at fault, you pay what's called an excess, and that depends on your age and the value of your vehicle and your driving record and so on, and then the insurance company pays the rest. They make a decision and say, well, your car is worth X amount of dollars, the repair bill has been quoted as X, we're either going to repair it or we're not going to repair it, and if we decide not to repair it, we will pay you what we say is the value of your vehicle. If you run into someone else's vehicle, your insurance company will repair your vehicle and will pay for the cost of the repair of their vehicle, minus the excess which you will have to pay yourself. Most people get that when they buy a new car, because obviously they've got that car under some sort of finance, and the finance company expects them to have that sort of insurance to cover the asset that they've loaned you money on. But even if you paid cash for it yourself, you would have that sort of insurance, because if your car, as I said, is written off, then you have to find a way to replace it, and the insurance payout minus the excess and the GST, goods and services tax, will be what you get, and that will obviously go towards buying or replacing your vehicle. The premium there depends on the value of your vehicle, the type of vehicle. Electric vehicles are more expensive to insure than combustion engine vehicles, because electric vehicles are more expensive in the first instance, and because of concerns with the damage to the battery and the safety of the vehicle afterwards, insurance companies are more likely to err on the side of caution and write those vehicles off, therefore forcing the premium higher. And obviously luxury cars are more expensive to insure than cheaper cars. There is a third form of insurance that is called third-party property damage. And that is, if you look at your car and say, well, my car's only worth a couple of $1,000, and if it gets written off, by the time I pay the excess and the GST, the payout I get won't be very much and won't help me to buy a new car. So I'm not going to insure it for it to be repaired if it gets damaged, but I'm going to pay an insurance premium to have any property that might be damaged as a result of my accident repaired. So if, for example, you are in an accident and you run into someone's house, or you run into a shop or something like that, your car won't be repaired, but the shop window or the person's house or whatever it is will be repaired. There'll be an excess that you'll have to pay, or an out-of-pocket expense, it's called in some places, I think, that you will have to pay. But the third-party property damage insurance policy will pay for the damage to other property. Now, if your car is only insured for third-party property damage, but somebody else runs into you, then their insurance would pay for the repairs of your car, or there would be discussions between their insurance company and your insurance company as to whether your car would be repaired or paid out or whatever. So there are three different types of insurance. Everybody has CTP, or compulsory insurance. It comes as part of the registration in some states, and in other states you have to shop around for it. People who buy new cars have comprehensive insurance, and some people who have older cars just have third-party insurance. Now, returning for a moment to the decision that people say, well, it's my right to decide whether or not I wear a helmet, and I should be free to choose that. In an ideal world, yes, where we have freedom of choice, even though these things are proven safety features and proven to reduce the catastrophic effects of head injuries, some people will assert their right to choose. What I think needs to be considered here is that no matter what insurance policy you have, whether it's an life insurance policy or a third-party insurance, no matter what it is, nothing is going to compensate for a catastrophic brain injury. If you're then left in a wheelchair or you're left in a vegetative state but still alive, no amount of money is going to compensate for that. But consider also the cost to the health system that eventually might be paid by your insurance company, or in the case of the third-party insurance in Australia is paid by another government agency in some cases, one government agency paying another. Consider all those costs that have become a burden on their health system because somebody asserted their right to not wear a seatbelt or not wear a helmet or whatever. Consider also that insurance premiums in the last few years, because of all the catastrophic climate events, the floods, fires and so on, have gone through the roof. Insurance premiums have gone up well above the cost of inflation because the insurance companies say, well, we've had to pay out billions of dollars or millions of dollars because of people having their houses burned down or flooded or whatever, and because you've made a claim, your premium is increased. Now, if lots and lots of people decide, I'm not going to wear a seatbelt or I'm not going to wear a helmet, and there's a sudden surge in catastrophic injuries in motor vehicle and motorcycle accidents, one thing is for certain, the premium that people pay is going to go up. And there'll be people who have good driving records, who've never made a claim on comprehensive insurance and have never been involved in an accident where third-party insurance has been involved at all, but because the insurance companies like to spread this risk over as many people as possible, their premiums have gone up as well. And you might say, well, I don't particularly care about other people, I'm only interested in myself and what my premium is going to be. But because you decided not to wear your seatbelt or decided not to wear your helmet and therefore suffered a more serious injury than you would have otherwise suffered, your premium is also going to go up. So consider those facts when you're asserting your right to make your own choice and not wear these things. I gather that it's an individual choice in some states in America, but it's not a wise choice in my opinion. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope you've learned something. If not, I hope you've enjoyed the scenery, and I'll talk to you again in the next video.